Welcome back to another video, you beautiful soul. So glad you're with me. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the third eye, specifically direct to the pineal gland and how to activate the third eye that we all have and that we all have access to, that has somehow been tucked away into the annals of history. It's the greatest thing you can do for yourself to move your life into a higher frequency and to move and shift your life into better circumstances. It's the greatest thing you could possibly do for yourself. A moderate amount of exercise, meaning exercising your pineal gland, a moderate amount of effort, but with the most return on your investment. This is truly one of the secrets that has been hidden from humanity, and many believe that it's been hidden intentionally, because when one accesses their third eye, they begin to access higher forms of intelligence. They begin to receive inspiration, and dare I even say God inspiration, or at the very minimum, the inspiration that comes from the inner part of your soul. So why did I get into this? Well, as you know, many know my story, but I have been where many of you are. I was in a place where I was suffering from very poor mental health. I had very poor mental wellness. I was suffering through an abusive situation, and essentially the outcomes in my life did not match what I was thinking about, what I was trying to manifest, what I was trying to accomplish. It just seemed that, especially in my finances, that no matter what I tried, nothing would come to fruition. And I got into the deep breath work, and more specifically, and this is the first time I've talked about this, I was actually intentionally working on opening my third eye, which is in the pineal gland, which is right here. If you were to point to it on a brain scan, it would actually be right here. That's why they call it the third eye. And it's just amazing that this has not become just public knowledge and common knowledge. Again, back to the DOPE, the Department of Personal Efficiency. Opening your third eye is straight up 100% dope. It's the greatest thing you can do to transform your life that I can think of. And it is spiritual in its nature. But what I'm going to discuss, just freestyle, is just the science behind it. And not I'll go deeper in on another video if you're interested to watch just straight to the science, because what I do is I combine the spiritual and the scientific together, and opening the third eye is 100% in that category. So essentially what I've began doing was doing the breath work, and then I would also do a very intense, now this one is more physical than anything. It's meditative, but it's also physical. As I was standing or sitting, I would push all the pressure in my abdomen, and I would work all the way up into my brain. And what the goal of this is to activate and to push the cerebral spinal fluid that we all have into the ventricles of the brain, where the pineal and pituitary glands are. And so, there's an entire corner of the internet and of YouTube that is dedicated to this. And so it's very much a niche thing, but there's actually still a ton of information. So fact check me on everything and continue to research. But what I would do is push all the way down from my sacrum and push the cerebral spinal fluid all the way up through my tummy, my stomach, all the way up into my heart, through my lungs. I would push, 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 and just squeeze and squeeze with my eyes closed until I got to the throat. And then I would continue to push, 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 push. And I would oftentimes lift my hands up like this and push the cerebral spinal fluid into my brain. And the first time I did it with my eyes closed, I saw like a mushroom cloud expand in my vision. And it was, I think, at that point that I intentionally, for the first time, opened up my third eye. It was bright white, even though my eyes were closed, and it just seemed like clouds pushing outward. And as you've heard in videos that I've made before, within 2 days, I had major changes. You know, inside of our brain, there's the pineal gland. And in the pineal gland, there are what are called cilia. You can think of them as like an eyelash, and you got to look at this on a microscopic level. Eyelashes, and on the eyelash or the cilia in the ventricle of the brain, where the pineal gland is, there is what are called calcite crystals. So guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You have rocks in your head. Yes, you have rocks inside of your brain. They're microscopic, they're calcite crystals, and they basically act as receivers. You may have heard me talking about the field that we live in and how everything is connected. There's a singularity that's involved, that everything is energy, everything is vibration, and even though we don't see it, it certainly exists. It's measurable with tools that we can't see these things, but we can measure them with various tools and technologies. And so inside of the brain, there's these calcite crystals. And by pushing the cerebral spinal fluid into the ventricles. Now, ventricles are basically like an open space in the brain. The ventricles are a place where there's room to push the cerebral spinal fluid into the brain. And when you do that, you oscillate the cilia that's in that ventricle. On the cilia are the calcite crystals, and when you oscillate them and agitate them and get them moving, it creates an electromagnetic. Yes, it comes down to electromagnetism. You begin to you enhance your electromagnetic frequency. Now, our bodies and all of us have a electromagnetic frequency. If you are a high vibe person, you might have like what they call an aura that surrounds your body, like 3 feet, 4 feet. If you're just like totally tuned in, you have great meditation, exercise, and nutrition, and you are intentionally working on increasing your electromagnetic frequency, you got 3 feet for most people, 4 feet if you're lucky. And for people who are in a low vibe state, you might only have 1 foot around you. However, when you activate the cilia with the calcite crystals that are associated with the third eye, the pineal gland, that field around you expands to 10, 12, 14 feet. Now, you have to understand that this field that's around you is basically your antenna to the world and to the field that surrounds us. So when your antenna is only 3 feet, you're receiving transmissions like a antenna does. It receives the transmissions that are around us, and you got 3 feet. When you expand your antenna up to 14 feet around you, that just means you have a bigger antenna. Another analogy you could use is like a satellite. You have a satellite dish on your roof. It's this big, but if you had a satellite dish on your roof that was this big, you would receive more transmissions. And so this is a way to get what I believe is inspiration from the ethos, from the field around us, from collective consciousness, to get inspiration and divine thoughts that can come into your mind, right, and into your heart. And that is done by stimulating your third eye and using the cerebral spinal fluid. I'll make another video on exactly how to do that, pushing it into the brain and activating the calcite crystals. There's crystals in your cell phone. For example, that's what enables you to receive a signal, your cell phone signal, or your Bluetooth. They have crystals that are built into, the phone, the silicone, and all the other technical parts like that work as a receiver and a transmitter. So you can receive information coming in and transmit information going out. And that's how we have this biological radio signal or frequency that exists in us, and pushing the cerebral spinal fluid up and out is how that happens. And I can teach more about that. It transformed my life in a lot of ways. And the beautiful thing is that this can be duplicated, not only by doing the breath work, but also getting into the personalized meditations, which I do, and how I facilitate that through an intake form where people can put the details of what they're trying to accomplish and the outcomes that they're looking for, and then eventually get you into a heart-brain coherent state. And then just sort of separate from that is teaching about how to activate the third eye. It's definitely duplicatable, replicatable, and it should be something like, going back to dope in the Department of Personal Efficiency, it should be taught to every person in the world. Every first grader should learn how to do this. And that's how I help people. That's my mission, is helping people by helping raise the electromagnetic frequency. And all that breath work is good, but if you combine it with opening the third eye, now the third eye is associated with supernatural abilities. And I know that in the midst of doing my third eye activation, I would, once it would happen in my meditative and breathing state, my gosh, at that point, I would feel like everything around me was moving in slow motion. Everything was in sync with everything else. And the only thing, when I got to that super deep state, the only thing I could do, and it still exists today, and I'll get into why these things are occurring in your mind, but all I could do was thank God. All I could do was say, thank you, God, or I love you, God. I would get reduced down to just a minimal state that that's all I had left. And that's actually a beautiful state to be in. And so this is how it can work for you, right? If you can learn really ancient secret that people are not really exposed to, and then combine it with brain training and mind sculpting, really there are no limits. I'll get more into the details on other, subtopics within the third eye and what that means. All I want you to know for right now is that you are a beautiful soul. You're not just a person. You're not your thoughts. You are a soul, and I love you, and I mean it. I wanted to say, of course, goodbye and God bless.